Good evening, good evening. It's 6:45 Tuesday night live. Hope everybody had a good week. Um, Getting the stretchy pants ready for Thanksgiving for Thursday. Gotta have the stretchy pants for the big full bellies. Uh, yeah, so we had a pretty busy week. Was able to get on the dyno Friday with the Studebaker, and we did run the car on Sunday. Hey Steven, how you doing? Yeah, we did get over to Bradenton and got a couple passes on the car. And good evening, Mike. And we'll have some stuff to talk about. We still have some things going on that we had from now looking back that have been going on for a while. So actually, with a phone conversation with Leo today, I think we might have narrowed it down to where the problem is, but we will see. But so we have, so as I said, had a busy week. Wednesday we were supposed to be on the dyno. It rained all day. Thursday it rained half a day, so the dyno shop couldn't get us in. And then we ended up going on Friday. And I got a tech tip early for everybody. When you repurpose jugs and cans and stuff, put a label on it. I typically always do that. And boy, did that bite me, because I didn't do it on Friday. So we have a bunch of fuel cans around, when I was getting the Studebaker running, Leo gave me 2 fuel cans, and we had dates written on them. So I said, well, let's burn up the oldest fuel first, breaking in the rings and getting some idle tuning and stuff done, because octane's not going to make a big difference. So I did. I emptied that jug, and then with the melee with Papa Smurf, and with pulling the motor back apart on the Studebaker, and going through the engine twice just to make sure we didn't have any issues. Somewhere during that course, we used that old fuel can to catch fresh oil. So, needless to say, I did not listen to my own advice, and I did not label the can. So fast forward to last Saturday, not this Saturday, but the Saturday before, we loaded the Studebaker up in the trailer. I got to do a bunch of shuffling to get the trailer out of the storage spot, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going around the shop grabbing all the stuff that we need to take, because when I'm done, I'm going to deliver the car to Leo. And so I want to make sure I had all of his stuff in the trailer. So, I saw 2 fuel jugs with his writing on them, so I went ahead and put them in the trailer. Well, this last Friday, I'm getting ready to go down to the dyno, so I'm like, let me just double check everything's good, and, do one more fire up, see how cold start is and all that. And, let me go ahead and top off the gas tank. Well, in my mind, grab the oldest fuel can first, so I did, and started pouring it in, and it's motor oil. My heart dropped. So, spent the next hour taking the foam out of the fuel cell, cleaning all the oil out of that, draining the fuel out of it, cleaning the filters, flushing it, and by the way, losing 3 gallons of race gas. But we got through it. It wasn't, it could have been a lot worse. Of course, that did create a issue where I then had to drive to Fort Lauderdale to VP to get another can of fuel, just to make sure we had enough to get on the dyno. But we got through that, and drove the car out of the trailer and onto the dyno, and drove it back into the trailer. So that was a win. Everything was in really good condition. Everything, all the sensors and everything, temperature, water, oil, everything like that was all showed good. And later on, after I showed a couple little videos of the dyno and the track day, we'll go over some of the data that I collected and show you what what you can see on the Holly system. Um, any system that data logs, but with this, the engine management and data logging is all done through the Holly Dominator. So I'll give you a bird's eye view, or whatever you want to call it, a view of what the data looks like and what it can tell you. But yeah, so that was an interesting Friday. Wasted $60 worth of fuel and about 2 hours of my time, but I did it. So that's the tech tip for tonight. Make sure you label things, label boxes with parts in them, label cans when you recycle them into, or repurpose them into other containers. Just save you. I mean, how many times have you took a jug and kind of looked in there or smelled it to see what's in there? Just take a couple seconds and write on there, and then you know what it is. So that was one of those things. You gotta have that happen to you once in a while to remind you. Oh yeah, that's why I do that. So that's word to the wise, I guess. So hope everybody's getting ready to see family and friends and enjoy our Thanksgiving coming up Thursday. I was planning on being in Jacksonville this week. Didn't work out, so I will be heading up to Jacksonville to meet family on Thursday morning, and shoot back on Friday or Saturday. We'll see how that all works out. But yeah, so can't wait. Thanksgiving's a fun holiday. Sit down with family and friends and eat a good meal and watch some football on TV and hopefully talk about some racing and stuff like that. But good to spend time with family. So what we'll do is let me go ahead and show you a little video I put together. Again, this is everybody on the live chat gets to see this, or live show gets to see these videos before anybody else does. So this is a little video I put together of the dyno. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and let it play, and then we can discuss after. So here it is. So there was the dyno testing we did, and for the guys that didn't recognize the terminology anti-lag, basically what that is we're doing manipulating fuel and timing, trying to make the turbo spool quicker. This has been a problem we've had for the last 3 engines, but unfortunately those 2 engines only lasted for 3 or 4 runs, and then they had issues. So we were never we were concerned with engine issues so much that we really didn't delve deep into what was going on with the boost issue. So at one time when we were thanks, Chris. At one time when we had a power glide in the car, that was and maybe even the first time we had the turbo 400 in the car, that's when we were running the 18s and 8.0s. But the car took a long time to get on the boost, but it would leave with anywhere between 11 and 15 pounds of boost. Leo and I had a conversation last week, and he kind of went through his notes, and we kind of figured out, well, this converter did this, and this transmission. Thanks, Stephen. It does sound healthy. But on since the last 2 engines, we've had issues where it won't get in the boost at all, and the drivers are sitting on the starting line, whining the motor up, and it's not going anywhere, not ever building boost. And then, of course, when you take off on a turbo motor with no boost, especially with the 4200, we're lucky if we have 350 horsepower to accelerate the car. So obviously, it's not a rocket ship. But anyways, that's what we were doing with the anti-lag. And on the 3rd run, you could hear it palpitating or popping or whatever. It was sitting on the rev limiter at 4100. That was the highest RPM I could get the converter to go to. So in turbo cars, when you're trying to work with the stall, they almost have like a hump that you have to cross, because the torque converter manufacturer is trying to make the converter work when you're at boost on the brake, ready to launch the car. So with Leo's car, we're trying to launch with between 11 and 15 pounds of boost. So at that point, the motor's making probably around 750 horsepower. So when the converter manufacturer builds the converter, that's their target. So then when you have an issue like we're having, where we can't get there, we can't get over that hill to get the boost up, so where the power comes up, so then this converter loosens up again to get to the final stall point. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. The whole thing with torque converters is the stall of the converter is relative to the torque and horsepower output of the engine at X amount of RPM. And then the flash and all that has a lot to do with vehicle weights and all that kind of stuff. So with turbo cars, it's always tricky trying to get loose enough that you can get to your stage boost level, but not so loose that going down the track you drive through the converter and it never locks up. So that's kind of the fine line we're walking. We've been so consumed with engine issues that we haven't really been looking at where the real problem lies. So when we had the Pro Torque converter done first, we had let's just say the 2.0 engine, and that one had some ring lands that oil rings that were overlapped and was smoking, pumping oil, looked like a diesel going down the track. Wasn't really operating exactly the way we wanted, but we just assumed, well, it's we got problems with the engine. So sent the engine back, went through it again, and then the next engine, when we were on the dyno, when I put the Holly system in there, it broke a rod in the middle of the connecting rod. So again, motor failure. So no time to worry about boost. We can't even keep the motor together. Send the motor back out again to the engine builder. Got it back to the 2, 3, so I guess that would be 4.0, and that is when we were having some ignition issues. Again, it wouldn't build boost, and after running the car, I think we made three attempts. This is back in, actually it might have been 19 or 20, I forget now, 2020, but that's when Leo did a leak down and found that one cylinder had a huge amount of leak down. We ended up finding an exhaust valve stuck. Those are the videos that are on the channel that show us tearing the engine apart and doing the exploratory surgery on it. And we found the thrust ate up and all that stuff. And then, obviously, if you guys have been following along on the live show, the engine builders ended up passing away from COVID. So that's why I took it over to see what's going on and hopefully to remedy some of our failure issues. Not saying that those guys weren't doing anything wrong or right. I have my suspicions what was going on, but that's neither here nor there. They're not here to defend themselves, so we're not going to go down that road. Nevertheless, I'm hoping we have all that stuff straightened out now. So, you saw we went on the dyno, no issues, everything was perfect. And then we went to the track and we ran the car, and not only did we drive the car on and off the dyno and into the trailer, same thing at the track. We were able to make our three runs that we were able to make in the time. The track had a lot of oil downs and crashes and stuff, so we didn't get a lot of runs in, but put the car away, still running, and everything's perfect and we're good to go. So that was good. So that draws us to why now we're rethinking, why aren't we getting the boost? Is it the torque converter? At first, of course, you want to cast stones at the torque converter immediately, but and for some reason I had a thought in my mind that the turbine housing was larger than what it really is. Leo verified today what size it really is, and it is, I believe it is the correct size. It did work correctly at one time, so it leads you to believe. At that point, we didn't have back pressure sensors on it when we had the Big Stuff 3 and the Race Pack data logging system. We had very minimal data sensors, so we had no idea what was going on there. So we don't have anything to compare to say, oh, look, this has changed, there's our issue. But that's why we have them now, because now we're, do a compression test on the engine now. Now we know, okay, fresh engine, here's where the compression was. Do a leak down, now we know what the leak down is. Check the valve lash, make sure the valve lash is good. Now we have the starting point of where it was when I assembled the engine. Now we can, do maintenance on the engine between events, and you can look at those items and see if things are changing. If things are changing, then you have to address that, either inspect or repair, depending on what it is. So it was a very good progress made between Friday in the dyno and Sunday at the track. Not the outcome we wanted. Obviously we want to be able to reset our personal best on the car, and which I believe is already the fastest door car with the 4200, but we are looking to put that deep in the sevens, and that way we know for a fact that we're there. We got the world's fastest car. So yes, data is king, Mike. You are 100% correct. So that was the thing I saw on the dyno when I'm fighting with anti-lag is the back pressure on the turbo is 0, and so just a little tutorial. So you have two parts of a turbo. You have a turbine and a compressor. The turbine is on the exhaust side. The exhaust gases go through the turbine, spinning the propeller, which turns the shaft in the compressor, and then the compressor obviously compresses air, and that's where you get your boost. And on all those things, we talked about this a couple of shows ago about oil pressure and stuff. Restrictions what creates pressure. If you're just blowing air out of pipe with the same diameter all the way through, you have zero back pressure. You'll make zero pressure unless you're volume is higher than what can go through the tube. So that was my first indication we have an issue, because the back pressure sensor, which is a sensor on the turbine housing, and it's reading how much exhaust pressure is in the exhaust system, and it's reading 0. So on the dyno, we disconnected it, hooked up shop air, regulated it, and sure enough, the sensor is working. The line is working, the line is clear into the turbo. So everything's working, so it's true data that we have 0 back pressure. Well, that's no good, because you need pressure to turn the turbine. So, you know, at the track we were thinking, well, maybe we could spray it. You know, we're coming up with all these ideas that in reality are Band-Aids. We aren't addressing what the real issue is. So Leo and I had a good talk tonight, and we're thinking now maybe the turbine wheel or housing is damaged in some way, and that is what's causing our lack of back pressure, and that's the reason why the turbo is not spooling. If it doesn't have any pressure to turn it, obviously to turn the compressor wheel to make boost, it's going to take effort from the turbine wheel. So if there's no back pressure, you know, theoretically and obviously in reality, it doesn't work. It won't make boost. It will make boost going down the track after it's has enough volume of exhaust going through. The engine revs up high enough, and you could hear that on especially the last dyno pull. It did make 18 pounds of boost on that last dyno pull, but it's all the way at redline. You know, it's very slow building up. In fact, that's why on that run, I started to run at 4,000 rather than starting at like 35 or 3,000, because I'm figuring, you know, it's not making boost down there that low, so why even go down there? So that's what we started at 4,000, and unfortunately, my buddy's dyno had issues. He's telling me how they've been running with he's got a Dynajet, I think it's a 248C, and it has an induction pickup for the RPM, which is a magnet coil. And even I know when I had my my dyno back in the day, those sensors, if you dropped them, they usually broke. And you know, that's a $200 sensor, boom, trash. Got to get another one. But we were talking, and you know, this new modern world we live in where everything comes from China. He's telling me now that if you just ding the pickup on anything, it cracks the thing. So we were having, while the tune was a little rich in the middle, it was getting a little breakup. I don't know if on dyno run 1 and 2 you heard a little rough spot. Well, that was making the dyno go crazy. So we converted the dyno to drum speed, which should have worked, but it didn't. So we ended up we got data on the low runs where we didn't make any boost, you know, and it was very sad. I think the highest run we saw was like 550 horsepower, so way off of where we should be. But then we converted the drum. It ran. It sounded right. The data in the Holly shows it made power, but we just don't have a time slip to a number sheet to show it. So Steven says S480 turbo 130 AR. No, this is a Garrett GT 4788, and it has. I thought it had a 132 back housing, or 123 back housing, but it actually has a 108 back housing. So that should be correct. I don't know if it's going to be optimum. We don't have data on that, but it should work fine, because the car used to go down the track with 20 pounds of boost all the way down the track, which was where the regulator, the wastegate was set at. So, you know, now that we're thinking about this with clear mind, we're starting to realize that we probably have an issue inside the turbo. So that's where we're going next. I guess see when I can get over and give Leo a hand getting that thing apart. So that was our dyno session. I knew with that data in hand, I knew that going to the track was not going to be setting the world on fire. and I was correct. You know, if you can't get a good 60 foot in drag racing, that's, you know, the front half of the drag strip is what really makes ET. You can run out the back and run big mile an hour, even if you're, you know, starting out later, you know, but you got to have a good front half to really put an ET number up. So we went to, after, you know, the dyno session and everything else, Sunday I drove over to Bradenton. We put all the bodywork back on the car and went to the track. Met Billy, the driver, there, and been a while since he'd been in the car, so it was probably good for him to get back in the car and exercise his legs. And so he does a lot of drag racing, but not usually in cars of that speed. So great driver. But yeah, so that worked out good. He got some times in. I didn't, some reason I don't know, just, it's so crazy. We're sitting in the staging lanes for so long waiting while these crashes and stuff were going. You would think I'd take 5 seconds and check cameras and make sure everything is working properly. I didn't, so I've got not much footage from the drag strip, but let's go ahead and play that.
Oh, awesome. Oh, right now, going, pull back on the zipper. Got it.
We're ready for Christmas. Look at him.
Yeah.
No,
All the same spots, right?
you go, bro.
Sorry? Looks like 158 or 159. Sorry about that, Mike. Yeah, so that was very lazy, Stephen, for a 108. So that's why we're now that we have a clear head and we have an engine, we're not worrying about what happened to the engine and stuff. That's why we're really starting to point that there's an issue with the turbo itself. Hey, so we got Nigel from Australia. Welcome. The sound should be back now. Yeah, I don't know why I turned the mic off. So, you guys have, is there sound now, or are we still out? Sound? Let me see. Oh, hang on. How's that now for sound? Hopefully that fixed it. I don't know what's going on with this software. Yeah, so that was our, okay, good. So that was our adventure. Obviously, 300 horsepower is not going to propel the car to great 60 foots. And Stephen, you're right, very lazy for a 108 AR. So that's what, with clear eyes, is making us thinking that we have a problem inside the turbo itself. My recollection is sometime a couple years ago, we noticed the wastegate was leaking, and taking it apart. When Leo and I had our conversation tonight, he remembers the seat that the wastegate seals on was really rusty. I was thinking it was gone, but after we got off the phone, what I think was happening is the seat was rusty, but it was missing some pieces. We assumed that it went out the wastegate pipe, which is a separate pipe on this car from the main turbo downpipe. But now I'm starting to wonder, did it fall into the turbine housing and go through the turbine and eat up the blades? Those Inconel blades are very sensitive, and they work great and last forever until a foreign object goes through them, and then it's catastrophic. And we have never taken the turbo apart in the last couple go-arounds. So that's our next move. We need to take the turbo apart and check what's going on in the turbine housing, and hopefully we're going to find our issue there, and then we'll be back on making horsepower. At that point, we can retest our Pro Torque converter. They did change the stator to a looser stator, so I mean, hopefully it should be spot on now. And if not, then we can go back to the A1. But to change converters now to A1 doesn't really make sense, because the more and more we think about it, and the data with no back pressure, and even in that last run when I said in the video I thought it went 158, it was actually 156. And I'll show you the data in a second. Still zero. It had 0.25 pounds of back pressure at 18 pounds of boost and 7,300 RPMs in high gear. So that shows you that there is an issue there. There's no reason a 108 AR should not be seeing. It should be close to 1-to-1, you would think. So 18 pounds of boost on the charge side should be 18 pounds of boost on or pressure on the back side, the turbine side. So we don't have that, so obviously we have to figure that out. That's our next move. But again, knock on wood, the engine's together, and it's so far showing that we're doing good there. So happy to hear that, happy to see that. So let's, if I can keep the microphone on, let me show you some Holley stuff. So that's the Holley software. I'm gonna, let's see. You make sure the volume is still on. Okay, we still got volume. So let me just, I gotta play around with some screens here so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so there's our fuel map, and the green lines are showing where the data points were during this run. This is the last run at Bradenton Motorsports Park, and so that was a all gear 7,300 shifts, and did make, I think, 18 pounds of boost, which we'll look at that in a second. So first, let's take a look at anti-lag for you guys. So in anti-lag, we have a couple tables here. As soon as it opens, there we go. So our first table, as you can see up here, it's the name of its boost builder, and the table type is timing offset, and it's by map pressure. So with our activation switch enabled, it only turns on when the rev limiter circuit is energized, so trans brake is on, and TPS has to be over 80% throttle. So when it does that, it's what this graph down is here. So all these zeros means the timing is running at the timing map. On this car, when there's no boost, it's 27 degrees total advanced. So it's all 27 degrees. And then here, when it just starts going over atmospheric pressure in the manifold, we start adding timing. Now you can subtract timing and add timing. Right now, adding timing did the best. So once it got up to 140 kPa, which we never got to, it would add 5 degrees to that 27. and then you would see it drops off. When it got to full boost, we would drop it back to 0 because we don't need the help anymore maintaining. So that's what anti-lag table looks like for timing. And this one will be for fuel. So this one's for fuel. And it's the table type is injector set number 1. This engine only has one set of injectors. And it's the same basic thing. So rev limiter has to be on, TPS, because those are all the same number, same settings. So where all the zeros are, up to 105 kPa, the engine is fueling off of the base fuel map. So whatever makes the actual AFR and the exhaust AFR, the target and the actual the same, then that's where it's running at. And then once it starts building boost, it starts adding fuel. It will add up to 12% on this map. Obviously, we don't ever get there because we're only getting to about 116 kPa, which is probably right about there. And that's so it's about 30% added fuel. But if you looked at the dyno session when we were doing anti-lag, you could see just that little bit of fuel. You could see the richness coming out of the tailpipe there. So that's what we have there. Excuse me. So that's how you make excuse me. That is how you make an anti-lag tune. Yeah, Steven says it could be the exhaust versus intake cam timing. Yes, that was our initial thought, because both times that I checked cam timing on the previous builds, the cams were retarded considerably, and considerable amount from where the specs were on the cam card. So during my research while I had the engine apart, I got a hold of Billy Goldbat at Comp Cams, and he is the excuse me, he is the chief engineer that designed those cams, and he was working closely with a bunch of the Comp guys that were running the 4200. So he knows the engines, he knows the camshafts because he designed them, and he agreed with me. We did not want to retard the timing on the cams as much as they were. We felt that guys at Racing Comp, they're running naturally aspirated motors, and they will sometimes do stuff that doesn't seem, well, it's probably right for what they're doing, but it wasn't, I don't believe it was right for what we're doing. So talking with Billy and checking valve to piston clearance, we came up with 105 on the intake cam and 116 on the exhaust. And when you looked at the numbers of the closing time of the intake valve and the opening of the exhaust valve, there was only about 15 degrees of overlap. So that should have made a stronger exhaust pulse to do that. So yeah, Steven says it's interesting. Calvin does some weird stuff with exhaust cam, like moving the whole tooth, but he also is using VVT, right? And that is why he advances the cam on the chain so he can get more, or retards it. Well, he moves it. I don't know which way he does to get more on the VVT. Mike says, do you use slotted gear? And yes, the VVT is deleted on this, and we have slotted sprockets that Self Racing had built, so I can make the cam timing wherever I want. So that's where the cam timing is now, and the motor runs as far as not going down the track, but driving around, start up, and burnout and all that. Billy did mention that the car feels really good and really responsive with the way we have the cam timing. Because remember, the timing ignition timing map and the engine are exactly the same as it was before. I didn't change, the same piston, same compression ratio, same valve train. The only things that I made, the only modifications I've done to this engine was I used a little bit looser bearing clearances, more where I would normally have a race engine. I put a pressurized lube passage to the thrust bearing to eliminate thrust issues, and I have the valves adjusted much tighter than what they were in the past. And that was something else that when I was talking with Billy from Comp, he said that for whatever reason, he noted that the Comp guys would typically run really loose valve train clearances, much more so than what was needed. But that's just what they did. So he wanted me to tighten them up, and when I did them, I ended up with 7 on the intake and 9 on the exhaust, which are thousandths. So it's still not as tight as a production motor would be, but clearly the motor sounds better. It doesn't sound as much of a thrashing machine as it used to, and I think that's you're going to get the full lift when you're taking adding valve lash to the motor. You're taking away from the lobe lift of the camshaft, because if your cam has got as these have a 499 lift, and you have 25 thousandths valve train clearance, well, that 499 is not there anymore. Now it's like 474 or something like that. So, So anyway, I listened to the guy that designed the camshafts. I figured if he designed the camshafts, let's go with what he says to do. So that's where we were at with it. What you saw in the videos, the engine, and we'll go ahead and let's do that now. Let me go to this screen. I have to change it on my desktop. There we go. So what we're looking at here is the sorry about that. Hang on 1 second. I switched my screens. Okay. So this is the data log out of the Holly. So here is our actual run down the track, because I have the fuel injection automatically sets where the turn on is. So let me go ahead and get rid of some of these things here. Battery. All right. So we have TPS is the purple line up here in the top, and I set the max at 102, so the line doesn't, if it's set at 100, it's on the top, you can't see it. So here's where Billy, our driver, has the car on wide open throttle. So here is where he's on the trans brake trying to spool the engine, and you notice the map pressure is 96 kPa, so it's not even atmospheric pressure. It's not even all the way got its first gulp of fresh air. So as we scroll through, now you can see the kPa is up to 104. The engine is already accelerated to 3,950. And go to the next cell, and there 4,021. So we're almost on a two-step already, and it's at 111 kPa. So the one thing that I think the cam timing has shown us is that the motor accelerates without the boost efficiently now. When we started having these when we first started having these boost issues, engine number 4, build 4, we actually timed it, and it actually took 7 or almost 8 seconds to go from trans brake on to when the driver would finally leave the starting line, and it still didn't have any boost, and it was like forever just creeping trying to get up there. So that was no good as far as that goes. So so I don't have it on this run. What I should do is let me fix this real quick. We'll go to drag race. So this is another map that we have set up. So you can see at this point, at 2 seconds in, it's almost on the chip, and the drive shaft has not changed yet. So we go to the next cell. Oh, now we have to. So we go to the next cell, and that's on this one. It's a 1 second increment. Now he's already launched the car. So if you look at this graph here, from this point here to, let's say, here, so that was, let's go back. So, okay, so from right there, at 58 seconds of the recording, you know what? Let's go ahead and make this 0 real quick. Set 0 point. Now I gotta redo things. Hang on a second here. Bear with me. All right, so now we have 0. So this is where the car theoretically launches. We have a 16-tooth dry shaft sensor, so at 56 RPM, it's probably counted 2 or 3 teeth, so it's barely taken off. And you can see that down here. Actually, here's where it actually first takes off, almost a second before that, so that even makes it worse. So anyway, so we're at 0, and we're going to go to here. So that is 3 seconds in, and the motor has just gotten to 128 kPa. So that is, let's roughly say, 7 pounds of boost, 6 pounds of boost. Motor's at 5,500 RPMs. So that just kind of shows what you saw in the video. The car just labored and took off and didn't do anything. For the first 3 seconds, it was doing nothing. Now we go out here to high gear where he lifted, and we ended up making 248 kPa on boost. So that's probably right around 18 pounds of boost. I don't have a calculator out, but it should be right about there. We can see by our dry shaft versus RPM that we are within 340 RPM of the dry shaft versus engine RPM. So the converter is efficient at that point. That's a 5% slip. That's really good. So you can tell, so where he lifted was probably past the clocks, but that's at 10 seconds. So, and actually the run starts almost a half a second ahead of that. So I think the last run might have been a high 990 or something like that. But you can see we were giving up 3 seconds of the beginning of the run, just the motor's laboring and not doing anything. So, you know, that's a big issue. That's a big problem. But we have the car is good. We can work on these things. Now we have data, so now we can make logical opinions of what's going on and then try to address it. Just to show you some of the other stuff I have. Here's sensors. So we got all kinds of, here's our, so here our graph is still, our cursor is still at 10 seconds at 7,300 RPMs, and there's our back pressure, 0. So that just shows you that now that we know it's a 108 back AR turbine housing, that we probably have a issue with our turbocharger. So that's what we see with the data logs and stuff. So yeah, so I mean, it was a good outing, even though we didn't set the world on fire. We got information. We are now sifting through the information, coming up with answers, and hopefully within the next couple weeks I'll be able to report to you guys what we've found and what our issue is. But I'm pretty certain now that all of our past judgments on torque converters and even valve timing to a certain degree was never our issue. So the good thing that came of the fresh engine build and the new valve timing placement that we have now is that the driver says the car feels very responsive out of boost. And as you saw, if it's hard to extrapolate, but let's just for kicks, let's just think about what we did. So let's just say he lifted at the clock and it was a 10-second. I don't have the time slip, so I don't know exactly what the time was. I think it was like a 9:96, but let's just call it 10 seconds. And we saw that at the beginning of the run, it took 3 seconds for the boost to actually turn in before the car actually accelerated. And of course, now we did have a running start, but that means that within that 6-second window, we were able to manage over 155 miles an hour. So I mean that's good information, especially since the car's record speed is 170, and that was with leaving with 12 pounds of boost and having like a 122 60 foot. So the car was leaving under power and accelerating from the get-go. So obviously we can't extrapolate and guess what kind of power and stuff it's doing, but it's doing what I feel is the correct thing. I think we're going in the right direction. We just have to find this turbo spool issue, and then I think we're going to be ready to do what it takes to make some really killer hits with this thing. So that's what we had to go with, and that's what we did. You guys got to see everything. I'm showing you all the information that we have, since hiding anything. Hopefully, get you guys your wheels turning. So, just like I was saying last week, it's kind of like a whole, just a big bench racing endeavor here going on. So, that's all we really have to say about the Studebaker and the 4200 for this week. Leo's going to be doing the leak down and compression the next couple of days, so that's going to give me some data. We do have to. He did report back to me, as I said to him, that I wasn't happy with the coil brackets. It's a undertaking to get to the spark plug. So I appreciate Calvin's file for making the brackets, but we're gonna have to do something different. I'm not happy with the amount of effort it is to work on the car. So I saw on the Facebook group somebody showed another comp motor. I believe it was a comp motor that had a couple carburetors on it, and they actually had a bracket that was moved to the side, and so that's what I'm going to do now. I got to figure out how to, because I'm not a 3D guy or a whatever you call it, scan, CNC kind of guy. So I don't know how to make a template to do it. I'm going to have to just kind of figure out old school and draw it on paper and then go from there. But we'll work on that, and then we'll, that'll make that servicing a lot easier. Everything else, I did a lot of other changes on the car that made it servicing a lot easier. Leo did mention that the coolant reservoir tank was a little low, so we have to check that out. Didn't see any issues. Car ran cool the whole time. That was one thing that when I vacuum bled it, and I moved the tank higher in the motor so it would stay above the cylinder head. We did see that, like on the dyno, I could sit there and run it non-stop, and it would 150, 160 degrees. So that worked out really well. Yes, Mike, we're still using the plastic valve cover, and there is 2 Christmas tree holes on the driver's side of the spark plugs that this valve cover's actually got time certs in, and we actually have the throttle cable bolted to that. So I think I'm going to come off of that with some type of a bracket and hang the coils on that side. I think that'll be good. Unfortunately, it means I'll probably have to make a new, well, maybe not. I might have to make a new coil harness. However, if I flip everything over and turn the coils the opposite direction, maybe that harness will work. So we'll see how that works out. That'll be a future endeavor. For right now, we'll leave it the way it is. We don't usually pull the plugs out that often, but for Leo's, servicing the motor when he gets it back, because we did notice rust issues inside the cylinder walls from when the car sat in the shop between vents. Remember, this car sits sometimes 3-4 months at a time before it gets ran. So a buddy of ours got us some Frogit. It's a spray that some engine builders put together so you can fog the engine after you race it, because racing fuels are very corrosive, and so this way you can get an oily type residue that doesn't hinder the spark plugs or anything, but yet it'll seal the engine up from getting rust stains. Mike says you don't use the coil unplug. That was our last effort, was to put the factory 4200 coils on there, because they've got the fins like the truck coil, LS truck coils have. And I looked at Standard Motor Products, because that's the only place I could get any coil data. And the coil data looked like it was very similar to the Holley LS coils. So I was hoping that they were going to work. But, going back and watching Calvin's video channel, he had the same issues blowing the spark out. And then he went to the newer version. The aluminum valve cover coils are a little bit different. He got a little bit farther ahead with that, but then he did the same as we did and went to the Mercury Marine Racing coils, the IGN A1s, which are the race coil that everybody uses. I mean, you'll have some of the Hemi cars and stuff out there, 4,000 horsepower, using these coils, where before it used to be that kind of power was regulated or relegated to magnetos only to fire methanol. But these coils do a good job firing high boost and methanol. They have come out with MSD came out with a 600 CDI system that goes beyond that. But I mean, we're nowhere near that kind of, you can definitely run 2,500, 3,000 horsepower on the IGN coils without any issues at all. So, I saw on Calvin's channel, he switched those coils, and I asked him, I shot him a message about the brackets. He said he made them, and he was kind enough to shoot me the CAD file for making them, and I sent them to my guys. On this side, where are they? Right there, Race Part Solutions, and they ran the program in a water jet and made me a couple sets. I sent 2 sets up to Calvin for letting me use the file, and I have 2 sets here. However, we're going to go ahead and modify it now, but it still works. I'll definitely use them on future projects, because especially an NA motor where you're never going to pull the plugs out, that setup works fine. I made stanchions, and I put retainer clips on the bolts, so you can turn the bolts out, and the spacers and everything all stay together, so you don't have to worry about dropping anything when you pull the piece out, because we have to have, I think it's a 80 millimeter stem to get the coils up off the valve cover so the wires can go down under it. So that's how we did that. When I will be putting out the engine assembly and engine install, not engine assembly, I've already put that video out, but I'll put the engine assembly installing in the car video out shortly. Maybe I'll try to make that this weekend, and then you'll see how the coils and stuff are all made. At that point, I thought they were pretty good. Like I said, I did notice it was going to be tedious to get to the spark plug, so I definitely going to revamp that situation. But other 4200 news. My buddy Forrest, who does classic car transportation or hauling, whatever you want to call it, he picked up my brand new crate 4200 from Utah on Saturday or Sunday, I don't know which, but he texted me and said the motor's in his trailer, and so now it'll travel across the country, ping-ponging across the country as he moves his clients' cars, and then when he does get back to Orlando, which will probably be, I would say 3 or 4 weeks, then I'll go up and pick up the motor from him. But I appreciate Forrest picking it up, and the nice thing is it's in an enclosed trailer around show cars, so it's being treated with kid gloves. I don't have to worry about being out in the weather and all those kind of things. So I'm very appreciative of that, and can't wait to get that here. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. One part of me wants to pull it apart and do a blueprint on it and see where all the specs are. But I'm sure they are where GM specs are in the repair manual. I'm sure they go by that pretty solid. So I don't think that's going to be a big deal. So we'll see. We'll get it. We'll keep it in the crate for a little while and figure out what we're going to do with it. One thought was to take it apart and open up, put better rings in it, like a Hellfire ring or something, and maybe a set of regrind cams and make it a backup for Leo's car. But if this motor holds together like it is right now, I don't think we need that. So the second thought was my wife's Trailblazer is approaching 200,000. It runs fine, doesn't burn oil or anything, but I'm thinking maybe put the engine in there, and then I pull her engine out, and then I can use that for a project, a future project. I'm kind of thinking, of course, this is down the line because we got a lot of irons in the fire already, but I'm kind of thinking it'd be pretty cool to build some type of rat rod or something, minimalist street car that's 1,500-1,800 pounds, and turbocharge it. I think it'll be a kick going to car shows. Nobody will know what the motor is, and probably gain a lot of visibility from that. So those are the thoughts. But right now, the main thing was just to get it. Make sure. I bought it off of Facebook, so make sure the seller wasn't a scam, and then get the motor into our hands so that we know we have it. So that's where that is at. So I've been working on the Camaro. I didn't get any footage of that today because I had to put these dyno and drag race videos together and get some work done. So I got most of the dash back together. So the interior is close to being done on the 69 Camaro, and then I just have some small work to do tidying up the engine bay. So I am hoping I won't have it running by next Tuesday's show, but hopefully I'll have it running by that weekend. So the following show we'll have some video on that running, but I'll have some video next week on where I'm at with the car. So we'll do that. And tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm going, since the trailer is out of the backyard storage spot and it is empty, I think tomorrow I'm going to go pick up the NASCAR. So we'll have some video on that too. So we'll see what that, what we can see on all that. And, see what happens, see what goes. So I want to thank everybody that was on this show tonight. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody getting on the chat and giving a shout out and putting in some conversation. I want to give a shout out to the people that are watching at home. I do have been told by a few people they watch on their TV screen, so they can't chat because they can't type on their TV screen. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Maybe you have to use a laptop and a TV so you can type on the TV or type on the what's going on here. For some reason I see the screens jumping around, so I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, thanks, Ryan. I didn't know if you were on tonight. I didn't see you. Ryan, what are you okay if I put some of the pictures of your truck and stuff, the ones you sent to me? Or is that an okay thing to do, or would you rather keep it hush hush? Just let me know. You're going by DNR, tell him I said hi. I'm not going to go by DNR, Mike, because now Doug is semi-retired. He only goes into work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So on Wednesdays, he's home. So I'm going to go pick up the car. So, but I'll tell him, hey, for sure. I told him you come on the live all the time. Steve says, thanks. Happy Thanksgiving. Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And a shout out to, let me see what, sorry, I missed your name. Why can't I find it now? Sorry about that. But shout out to the gentleman from Australia. That was really cool. Nigel, there you are. Really, really appreciate you logging in and getting a inside look at the ameri-barra. I know you guys have the Barras over there, and that's your big 6-cylinder turbo motors, and we have the 4200 over here. So I know Calvin on his channel puts a lot of comparisons, and so does Richard Holdner. It does all the turbo dyno videos. He also puts a lot of emphasis on the ameri-barra versus the Barra engine. Let me try to get, for some reason, looking on my screen, it looks like the looks like the background screen went crazy, so I'm trying to fix that. Sorry about that. So anyway, the VIG is okay. The truck is in stealth mode. Understand, man. That's why I asked. I didn't want to just go slapping stuff up there. So, very good. I see Mike earlier said, solid cam gear. Yeah, we use solid cam gear. So, so with that, I think I'm going to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. If anybody has to travel, safe travels. Like I said earlier, put on the stretchy pants so you got plenty of room for all that good eating. So enjoy your time with your families, and if you're off Friday and Saturday, Sunday, get in the garage and get some work done, and then we can all talk about it on the live next Tuesday. And something else I've been kicking around. If you guys, anybody that's on here on the live, and you have a project, and you want to email me pictures, feel free, and we'll pop them up here on a live, and that way everybody on the channel can kind of see what everybody else is doing. We all can kind of familiarize ourselves with each other, since we're all in different spots, and obviously we can't see each other. But if we share pictures and projects and stuff like that, it just I think it tie all of us together and make it just good information. So anyway, I think we're gonna call it a night. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody.